That's what had happened in this vicinity. You remember I told you we have mountains running perpendicular to the sea. In between we have silt valleys, very rich valleys. But the rivers running in the silt valleys making big curves and depositing a lot of silt into the sea. That's exactly what had happened in this vicinity as well. And that's the reason that the city has been relocated several times. Very first Hittite city was the area where we have the castle that we saw from far, you remember? No. And then the temple of Artemis was right here, number 23. So, but whenever the harbors of the city, there was one right here and in the other one right there, silted by the rivers, so they lost their connection with the sea, malaria problem became an issue. Lysimachus, the king, decided to move the city to the valley that we are going to walk together. So starting from early 3rd century before Christ, the city was right here. That's a very good location for defensive purposes as well. You have two mountains on the knoll of which they had city walls. And whenever you establish a new city, what you do first, you build a main street along which the new city has been flourished. But whenever the city moved from the other side to here, the population was around 30,000. 30,000 was a good amount. At the time of Paul and John, and mid-1st century AD until the end, the population was around 90,000. End of 2nd century AD, 250,000, which means you need to add more and more and more, right? So hopefully we have several professors, I work with one of them as well, which made the construction program of the whole city. You remember the gate that I told you, right? The gate was right here, and the very first street was East-West Street going down to the harbor. That's quite logical, right? Because trade roads should come and should be going, and this has to be a quite large street. So this is the street, a piece of which is unearthed by the archaeological team 20 years ago, and which goes down to the harbor side this way, right? And at the time of Paul and John, that was the city. Could you see? Then, whenever the population increased, they added more and more construction everywhere. And the city reached to 500 acres. Everything was completely marble in this city. That's unbelievable. They're so rich. These people were very proud about their wealth. But a very interesting point is, you know, this was the harbor, and they just dug a canal because the silts were coming. And finally, the city moved away from the sea moved away from the city of Ephesus. What happened? The city died. This cannot be coincidence. I would like to remind, right, the letter to Ephesians of, not Paul, right, of the book of Revelation. He says, if you don't repent, because they are accused being away from their first love, right? And it says, if you don't repent, I'll remove your lampstands. And you won't be a Christian anymore at all. Like they moved away from their first love, and they would be punished by the Lord. Moving the lampstand, that means you won't have any church anymore at all. Whenever the sea moved away from this prosperous city of Ephesus, the city died. No second life for that city. Can this be coincidence? I don't believe either. It's not a coincidence. So we will talk more about this city, but I need to tell one thing. Whenever the city has been abandoned, they went there. You see, this is the location of the tomb of John, right? John the Apostle or the evangelist, though. And they recycled they repurposed the marbles of this city right over there. But hopefully, after a couple of 100 years, with the earthquakes, all of the houses were on the slope of the hills. This dirt moved down here, and they covered everything with thick layer of dirt. For example, you see these arches. This is supposed to be a Roman bath. And when the archaeologists start digging this site at 1927, this very part, they took a picture, black and white. You could see only the edges of those three walls. The rest was under rubble. So the rest of the city was completely under rubble. So you remember we were talking about the Temple of Artemis. These people were tied to Temple of Artemis. They were just thinking that without her, the city wouldn't exist. So to be able to tempt them to move here, they built a processional road. That's important for our history as well, for early Christian history. I'll tell you why when we in time. Because I have limited knowledge, so I don't want to shoot all my bullets at once. So, I only read, I don't know, have you ever heard, there is a series of pre- and post-Nicene fathers written by two German, right? Around 48 books, 40,000 pages. I read all of them, that's all. All my everything written in the first 700 years of early Christianity by all the church fathers. So interesting, so important. So this processional road starts right here, passes through the gate that I pointed you, takes the road that we walk together, and they're coming down to the harbor side, actually theater side, harbors, and then continues this way and going back this way. So that was once every month. There were processions of Artemis. You had musicians dressed in a very effeminate way. I'm not saying, the historians saying. Then you have carts, right? Lead by neopois, processional leaders. Let's say you have a problem with your wife, right? You go number 3 and just throw a coin and they give you an idol. If your life is getting better, you go back to the temple and donate. One more idol. So it's not just a problem of belief, but the idols, buying and selling, banking system, right? Money. We have a saying in English, money talks, bullshit walks. That's exactly what was happening right over there. We are right now here. This is so-called the administrative center of the city. Over there we will see it. We will have another angle over there. We have a theater-like construction, which was the council chamber for the gathering of the nobles. Then you have a little store for the meeting. Then the house of municipality. But the whole large space in front of us, right here, was an agora. Agora has two meanings. One means meeting place. The second one is marketplace. So in the city of Ephesus we had two agoras. This is a meeting place. This was the marketplace. By the way, are you going to any, I know there are 3 pastors right here. Yeah. Are you going to do any reading? Do you want to do any reading?
Yeah, we'd love to, if there's some good spots to do that.
Acts 20 verse 20, right? Paul says when he was preaching to the elders of Ephesians in the city of Miletus, according to New English Version of the Bible, he says, I was not coveting to tell you the truth. I preached publicly and house to house. Right? Remember this. In the original Greek text, the word publicly is agora. Indeed, it's agorai, plural. So in both, he was a Roman citizen. He had right to have an access to this agora, and for sure the marketplace was also the place where people were socializing, almost like shopping mall. We will just walk into the marketplace. The main gate, because of the restoration in front of the library, is closed, but we can sneak from the other gate and find nice seats prepared by the Romans.
That'd be awesome.
And you can do it over there. Is that all right?
Great. Perfect. Thank you.
Who is expecting you? Yeah, they are. To identify the fresh water distribution system of the city, right? Though, you see, they found a lot of clay pipes all around, and they realized that the whole system was appointing a certain area right on the left-hand side, where all the aqueducts were bringing the water down there in a big fresh water canal and cisterns, and the whole thing has been distributed the rest of the city with clay pipes. Can you see these clay pipes are averagely 1,900 years old, and they're still intact. Why clay pipes? We have a genius architect who lived at the end of 1st century BC, wrote 10 books on constructions, whose name is Vitruvius. You remember Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvius, man, that gentleman? In the book 8, chapter 6, he says, we shall not use lead pipes, they are not healthy. 2,000 years ago. That's why they use clay pipes. Anyway, so whenever they look at the system, they found this pavement going back to 3rd century BC. Ladies and gentlemen, when Paul came to the city, that was the only road which gives you access from the eastern gate down to the harbor side. We truly will be walking on the steps of Paul, because this road here since 2,300 years. You can take pictures, as I told you, be careful, because when you walk and take original marble pavements from Hellenistic period, because the Romans could cut the marble much better. They had machines cut the marble, and those are mostly chiseled. For sure it was more even, but you can see east-west direction. Only this portion has been unearthed, the rest still under rubble. But today with the modern technology, we can trace the road down to the harbor side. So if you do take pictures, the other may come forward so you can have chance to take pictures without the hands of others. That's over there, next to which we have the agora. That's that symbol there. Well, I was going to talk about it at the Arbor Street, but no problem. There's a question asked by the gentleman who is wearing a nice sweatshirt of Mykonos. A pizza for 8, right? Constantine, before the War of Milvian Bridge at 312 or 13, right, AD, he had a dream, and he saw crosses coming from the sky on which it says, "You will win with the cross." He told his soldiers to put crosses on his shields. After the victory, he made his edict of tolerance, and Christians, first time, almost all the whole history, were free to build temples and their churches. And he said, cross will be the official symbol of Christianity. Before, cross wasn't the symbol of Christians. It's first used by Pope Zephyrus to seal the catacombs at 217, the catacomb of Callicnus, the bishop, with an anchor and a cross, because there was a problem. A lot of Jewish people converted into Christianity. Some stayed as Messianic Jews as well. We still do have Messianic Jews in this country, calling themselves Romaniots. And so according to Jewish belief, if someone hanged on a tree, he is cursed and he cannot be accepted by the God. So how come you say Jesus was hanged on a tree, on a cross? That was because the perception of the people then were not better than a kid of 7 years old today. It's hard to make them understand things. And on the other hand, Romans could be harsh, but something very precious, actually two things very precious given to the people living under the rules of Romans. One, the right of being buried. That was important for reincarnation. Two, peace. That's how Paul could be able to travel from one city to another one safely. That's the peace provided by the Romans. And if you violate the peace, what happens? You will be crucified. So you cannot tell people, oh, you know what, Jesus crucified. So why Jesus crucified? He should be somebody bad. That's the perception of the people. So what the symbol used is very ironic. I told you, you told me that some of you have been to Holy Land, right?
Yes.
You remember the church built at the place of the Pontius Pilatus. And when you face the entrance of the church on the left-hand side, there's a little sidewalk, right? Which is from Roman area. Mostly people are not entering to this little street, but on which we have a little games called rota cards, played with dice. Same thing, right? Divided 12. And you remember they cast lots to share the garments of Jesus, so that was a game, could be played with dice or with pebbles. So very ironically, early Christians took this game and adapted as a symbol of fish. But whenever Eastern and Western churches drifted, you use regular fish, right? But in Greek Orthodox world, we use this fish, pizza for 8. I would like to remind you, right? Fish is written how? Ichthus, I, X, theta, Y, and sigma. In this very circle, you can write fish in Greek. I, X, theta, Y, and sigma. And this is carried to Western world by St. John Knights, who became Maltese Knights. So this is the earliest symbol used by the Christians in every entrance of the city. You could see this. Until when? Until 593, a council gathered under the lead of Justinian II in Istanbul, in Constantinople. Canon 73 says it's forbidden to write the name of God on the ground. Then you could see it on the ceilings of the churches. Could I answer your question, sir?
Perfect. Pizza.
Better than anything.
Ladies and gentlemen, this road doesn't end here. It's supposed to continue this way, right? But only this part unearthed. You see, under the rubble over there, we have the rest of this road. And then we are going to make a right turn. On the left-hand side, right over there, we have the arches. Oh, those are the foundations of a temple dedicated to an emperor, Domitianus, son of Vespasianus, the one who defeated the rising of zealots, upright. And then his older brother Titus, the one who destroyed the second temple in Jerusalem, became the emperor. This man had no hope of becoming emperor. He became emperor accidentally. He organized an accident for his brother, so that's what we call accidentally, right? Yeah. You know, I'm the English gaining new meanings. Augustus discovered one fact. 90% of the people of the Roman world were not Romans, so they were believing different things. And they decided to amalgamate all of them under one system of belief. And he just deified his stepfather, Julius Caesar. He became Julius Caesar, Divius, the god. And afterward, every single emperor, with the suggestion of his successor, several exceptions exist like him, became God. And the living emperor, since he was the true or adoptive son, was becoming Son of God. When Jesus proclaimed as Son of God, these emperors didn't like this idea very much. That was not a good competition for them. And then, but this guy who became emperor at 95 AD was one of the greatest megalomaniac of the world. For to be Son of God for him was not sufficient. He said, "I am the Theodomini, the Lord and God." And they decided to build a huge temple to his name. During the inauguration ceremony, he said everybody should be dressed in white. That was the ceremonial dress for the Romans. But there was one brave man in this city, never followed the orders of the Emperor John, was living then here, according to ancient Christian writers. And all the apostles, to be able to show that they were grieving for Jesus, were wearing sackcloths and robes, like the monks of today. He refused to change his dress. But hopefully, the 10% of the population of the city were Jewish, and some of them are very rich, like mentioned in the Acts, right? Alexander the Grammaticus, the accounter of the city, was a Jewish, right? He was a prominent and strong man. Anyway, they appealed to the emperor and said, "He's a saint to us. He has miracles. Please do not execute him." The emperor wanted to have fun, megalomaniac. He said, "Okay, I want to see a miracle." They brought a big cauldron of boiling oil, and he was told to go in. And he came out unscathed. So instead of being beheaded, he is exiled to island of Patmos. So, and all the ancient historians are writing about this. And if you go to Vatican next time, there's a little chapel of Giovanni de Calato, beheaded John. This is mentioning about John the Baptist. But in this very small chapel, we have a cauldron making a dedication to this miracle of John. So my sources, mostly two respected professors, one of them, Otto Meyanardus, half Greek, half German professor who made researches about this subject, and he's an authority on this, and in his book also he's writing this, how he's exiled to island of Patmos. All had happened at the time of this guy whose name was Domitianus. So, I hope I'm not talking too much, right?
No, not at all.
What do you think the social media then could be? What is the social media then? You want to leave a message for the people for so long time. What do? You carve something on the walls, right? So keep in mind this one, please.
Why is this road so smooth? Did they cut this?
Which one?
Why it's so smooth?
No, those are new ones. These
These are new, those are old. You see the difference?
Oh, thanks, Steve.
I'm glad. I'm assistant guide.
Thanks for
Pointing out the difference.
But this is Roman type of cutting, right? Those are smooth with the people walking on them, right?
Is it wheel or water?
Be wise.
Call the carpet guys. If you feel like when you walk through your living room, you're amongst the ancient ruins, be wise. Call the carpet guys. 855 for my
God.
guys, or visit carpetguys.com today. We'll come to you and make it fresh and new.
Good. I don't know. Became part of what? But so, ladies and gentlemen, this is a.
Is that Tom from
graffiti.
MySpace?
It's a graffiti.
Says
That's
Tommy.
a graffiti, and as you can notice, that's something very quickly made
Yeah.
because at that time, Christianity, according to Romans, was an illegal religion, and any act, certainly at 3rd century, right, the persecutions start being very severe. The first persecution started with Nero, but it was sporadic. Then at the time of Trajan, reports about Christians started. Then at the time of disuse, they start persecuting Christians, and a lot of them escape out of the borders of Roman Empire. So if this would have been carved here at Christian era, it would be just framed very nicely, right? And then somebody would just make it very nicely. So somebody came and made it quickly to give a maternal message to us. And it goes back to early 3rd century AD, at the time of Pope Zephyrius, around 230s AD. So what is written here? Some letters are missing.
Says Tommy. Tommy called.
It says mystical fire. What is mystical fire? Holy Spirit. Then it says mental light in the dark. In the Gospel of John, Jesus says, I am the light for the nations. And also letter to Ephesians of Paul says, before Jesus came on the earth and sacrificed himself for us, all the nations were in dark, right? So mental light in the dark is Jesus. And it says, mystical fire, mental light in the dark, oh Lord, protect us. Alpha, Omega. Start with cross, end with cross. That's a 1,800 years old message. It's not unlike our social media. It's still here and will be here another million years as well. That's showing us how strong the message of the Lord was. And it's still here and we can read it. We are very lucky.
Amazing.
What's the middle one? So mystical fire.
Mental light in the dark. No worries, if you have an iPhone, I have full picture and translation. I can share it with you.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
If you have an iPhone.
So we have several fountains right here, the front part of the temple dedicated to Emperor Domitian. And there is a tractor wagon coming up here because there are ongoing restoration work. The season is over, but still they do some work right in the city. By the fig tree on the left hand side, there's a piece of a monument, right? You can see Nike, you know Nike? Do you remember Nike?
Just do it.
Right, Nike, just do it. She's the goddess of sneakers, as he says. So a beautiful depiction of Nike with wings and everything is right here. But for us, the important part is right the one behind. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last restoration done by the archaeological team. Actually, excavation is important. to me because this was the time. This bring us the time about the end of the life here in this city, which is this should be built around the end of 5th century AD and ended with a thick fire with the looting of Persian army at 628. That's when they abandoned this location and went to live around the Basilica of St. John where the tomb is. We have one emperor, Theodosius II. He just wrote Codex Theodosianus, and he just converted all the laws and edicts declared by non-Christian emperors right into which fits to the life of Christians and the Bible. So, book 18, chapter 14 is quite interesting. It's the law of useless people. Have you ever heard anything like this? Law of useless people. Invalidis, it says. I'm translating it as useless, right? Invalid. Same thing. He said if a person is not working, just like beggars, smuggler, pickpocket, they all had to evict from the cities. The population just got 30-35% less than at 5th century, and they are connected to the bishops of the bishopric seats. They were not permitted to move to another bishopric seat without getting the permission of the bishop. But there were people in the cities working whole year around, but couldn't feed their family as it should be done. They found the remains of the houses in the vicinity after this location has been abandoned by the rich people. They had very poorly constructed houses, no cooking material inside. So they had no chance to have hot pots, food. The second part of the edict is about those people. He says every single city must be establishing, right, restaurants from which they distribute hot pot food for all poor families twice a day. That's a very good discovery according to me, because that was the abandoned part of the city where only poor people living when this restaurant was built. So this is showing us the proof of the words of Theodosius II. This is the first proof of the Christian state social welfare, which brings us 1,500 years earlier than our time. So, today, as I told you, we're going to talk about only early Christianity right here, and we'll keep talking like this. I hope this is okay for you.
Yes, please.
Be careful here, as you notice, the marbles are completely unable to get thrown. Man, backing up. This is the road that we took, and if you would have come here 2,000 years ago, it was the ocean. All silted by the river. It's hard to believe now. The coastline is 3.5 miles away from here.
Abi Armanya önünde kuruya tutsun diyor Armanya.
Hep makine işi Avustralya.
Çalışmıyor bu headsetler ya.
Yardımcı olun yani bak.
I just had this today. I know. I don't know what I'm gonna.
The main street and the luxury street of the city about the end of 1st century AD, at the time of John. At the time of Paul, we don't know how this one was looking like, because all of the evidences are showing us that, including the mansions which were built along the slope of the hill, and these pavements goes back to late 1st century AD. So this is the time of John. At the time of Paul, the street was right on top of the hill going down this way, and this was not part of a processional road, but the other one was, and which was bringing us down to the library site. So this is from 1st century AD street, on which we had sidewalks and shops and the houses all along. And this gentleman's statue is so important because this is, can you read Greek? No. So I can't say anything, thank you very much. So this is, the name is written here, Alexandros, and he was a doctor. And do you know how to say doctor in Greek?
Doctor.
No, this is in Latin.
Doctor.
Dottore. No, you all do. How you say doctor of psychology? psychiatrist, right? The word iatridi means, or iatris means doctor in Greek. So you see, iatris is written. Why we have the statue of this gentleman? He lived around 3rd century AD. He was the first known doctor of the history who made the connection between mosquitoes and malaria. He burned sage tree leaves in the city and used St. John's wort oil. Then they just decided to erase his statue along the street because that was a great service given to the city, health service. His name is Alexandros, like Alexander the Great, right? Alexandros, Gaius Alexandros Theodosius, the son of Theodosius.
And more pizza by your feet.
Now this is a game. This is divided differently. This is not pizza. Original cement.
This is unbelievable, isn't it? Just walk down. It's unbelievable.
Okay, this is beautiful view. We are very lucky. Yes, 4 big cruise ships. And here was packed, which means we couldn't even open your arms wide to take the picture.
These things, like our
The whole. Yeah. I'm going to give you So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a fountain right next to us. It's the ugliest restoration of ever. Restored before the crusade by Paul VI at 1967. They put things on top of each other with some cement. But that's a fountain dedicated to an emperor whose name is written as Greek. Trajanus. Why Trajanus? Trajanus was a ruler between 97 to 117. And at his time, we have reports written about Christians by the officials, by the governors, right? And this is the first time, exception is Josephus Flavius, you remember, who wrote his Jewish Antiquities, and he mentioned Jesus. He is the first non-Christian person, right, mentioning about Jesus. But in 2nd century, we frequent. John, how are you?
Good to see you. I thought I recognized you. We're going to be together next June 26th.
Yeah, yes. For
You got a great guy, guys.
We do.
okay, thank you, John.
Yes.
You know what? I'm writing a book. It's going to be on 7 churches and metaphors, the handbook. I'm going to send you one next month. I have all your information. Enjoy your time, John. So, Josephus, I was saying, Cassius Dio Suetonius mentioned about Jesus as well, and one man who was the governor of northwestern Turkey, Plinius the Younger. He wrote letters to emperor about Christians. I want you to come a little closer if you don't mind. And he said, I just took the confession of a slave under heavy torture. That's the only reliable way of having the confessions from the slave. But he thought he learned about Christianity, but his ideas was completely wrong. Those are not my words, right? Don't misunderstand. I'm quoting from him and from the other writers of that era. He says, all these Christians are cannibals. Truly, you are.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And they say they all have ancestor marriages.
Brothers and sisters.
You're all brothers and sisters, right? And you made all these brothers or sisters somehow are marrying each other, and in the eye. So that's good enough to tell us that this person was completely ignorant about Christianity. If he says so, he's not aware about anything. So then the next sentences will be much more precious. And he says, all these are stubborn people, all Christians. And then he adds, they are ready to give up their life, but they don't give up their faith. Even the most ignorant person on the earth could see this fact. These people had unwavering faith, cannot be broken with the threat of death. And that makes out the fruits of this people 2,000 years later. And all had happened at the time of this gentleman, whose name is written on the stone, but the whole thing collapsed down and upside down, and still we are here and he doesn't exist. Kimber. Handbook of Seven Churches, all metaphors.
So we'll look for that on Amazon.
Test, right?
Yeah.
See? Then after it will be then I'll write, I'll just publish a couple of thousand because I already sold this 500.
Well, that's right now, you guys are just.
Ultimate persecution applied to Christians right here. And some of the pastors and priests escape outside of the Roman Empire, not to give the Holy Spirit scriptures to Roman soldiers because they were all collecting them, burning them. Right? Some of them went to Iran, some of them went to Ireland. Anybody Irish roots? So in Ireland we have all churches with round dome soil, right? Small chapels built by first time by this pastors escaped from here, and they were gathering either in caves or in house churches, right? And in Greek, the house church is called Kyriakeia or Kyriakio, which means the house of the Lord, the Master. But when they moved, and the right pronunciation in Greek is Kyriakeo. And when they went to Ireland, the Irish people, the English was so rough then, and couldn't pronounce the word Kyriakeo, and they call it either Chiriche, or then they changed it into Kirk. And the word Chiriche for English speaking became church. So when you say church, you truly say the house of Lord in Greek, but wrong pronunciation. And right here we have the statue of Constantine Nobili, the gentleman who made Christianity one of the official religion of the empire. Am I are we doing good?
Okay.
I know you like to take pictures and not moving too fast. I hope now we are going to make a little detour to see the most important building of the city. Yeah, you're right. In case of emergency, it's the bathroom, right? Those were Roman period bathrooms. And with the edict of Emperor Vespasianus, they start collecting an entrance fee. 1 drachma, $4.3 or $5.3. If somebody would have charged me $5, I would find a corner. So we have a nice story about it. And in Japan, a Japanese man saw a Chinese man, right, peeing in a corner. He said, "Stop, stop, stop." He said, "Come." He said, "Walk, walk, walk, walk." And he said, "Okay, here." And he showed them another wall. And Chinese man said, "Is this Japanese courtesy?" He said, "No, this is Chinese embassy." And you can like in the ancient times always, they were separated, one for men and women. The one for women, we don't know what happened. But in several other cities, they found both side by side. Naturally, like today, the one for women is smaller. Because there's only a line in front of woman's part, right? I don't know why. Fiscus urinicus. Urine tax. Urine tax. So, we are going to go inside and we are going to see how those were located. You see seats right next to each other. No separation, not even a curtain between the seats. So you could come here with your 47 good friends, because the capacity is 48, so you are 2 people short. The group is 2 people short. If this would be 48, it would be perfect. You see the original seats are marble. In this canal of fresh water in front, you take the water, wipe yourself. But if you say no, I don't want to use my hands for this, there was a vessel. Did I pronounce it right? Vessel. Vessel, right? Hyssop wrench, sponge, and vinegar. You dip it into the vinegar, and this is antiseptic. You clean yourself. But at the beginning, there was one piece of sponge for everyone.
Oh, nice.
But they were smart people. They were not just idiots. They understood that this is causing diseases, contagious. So every single rich guy and every soldier, because health of a soldier is strategically important, was giving a vessel of cleaning. So remember Gospel of John? When Jesus asked for water to fulfill the saying of Isaiah, what did he receive?
Oh no.
What did he receive?
Vinegar.
Vinegar.
With what?
Vinegar.
You remember, the whole gospel writers are telling us, and also ancient writers, the trip of the walk of Jesus on Via Dolorosa and being on the cross is total humiliation.
Yes.
But the uppermost humiliation done by the soldier called Stepaton, offering him the sponge that he used to clean his body. Have you ever heard any worse humiliation than this?
No.
Those are total suffering of Jesus, but all sufferings we know end with victory, with glory.
Yeah.
That suffering will become the glory of Jesus.
Wow.
So you need to come back 500 years later and say, they told us it's going to be finished, the cold way in you. I may have little difficulties with walking. Maybe we'll walk with walking sticks. Or our bones, but no flesh, just bones, and this is going to be a walking stick.
Just roll your casket around.
Ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Do you need one?
Not yet.
Because it's unfinished, it's not used though.
Oh, okay.
We can tell them to just carve it nicely and probably we can make a deal. Yeah.
It's different.
Because right over there were marble workshops, right?
Okay.
They found a lot of coffins and most of them has been displayed on the way out. So one just stayed behind. When I started guiding, all along this road we used to have this sarcophagi and we had to walk in between. Then the archaeologists carried them out and displayed in certain corner and there is another one on this corner stayed behind. So ladies and gentlemen, you remember I told you there was a processional road of Artemis, right? And then, but it was not this road. The other road was going up there and coming down here through this gate, right? That's why they built a very good facade lately on that road, because that was the procession of the Artemis. And why this gate is so important, right behind, ladies and gentlemen, there was an altar. You know what altar is for sacrifices? And right at the corner there was the statue of Artemis with a lot of breast and animals sculptured on her body. So whenever the altar of the group was coming right here, rich guys, right, were already paying the money for bulls. They were sacrificing animals right in this corner. Then rich guys were buying it after being smoked. They were bringing it to the theater because then the processional group was going to theater. And over there, the rich people just shouting their names, right, offering the swine and food to the poor, to the others. That's why we have a theater for up to 30,000 people in this city. So whenever the riot started with Demetrius in the commercial agora right down there, we'll be there shortly from the other entrance because of the restoration work. We don't have an access, but this gate is from 1st century BC, so though this is the gate through which Paul and John entered. Library is from 2nd century. It is reconstructed by the archaeologists, and there is an ongoing reinforcement work, but it's not important to us. The altar is so important because whenever riots started in the agora, they went up this road or from the other one, or came down from the processional road and reached to the theater. And this time people joined them when they heard the name of Artemis was shouted very loudly. That's what Bible is telling us, right? And then they said, okay, where is our meat and wine? Somebody told them no. With the new religion, it's not going to happen. You remember, Bible says one saying one thing, the other one, another again, and nobody know why they were there. That's the reason. They just joined this crowd unconsciously, thinking that they will have a little benefit at the end. But there was no benefit. So they got nervous and they start shouting more and more. But on the other hand, right, between 312 until 381, Christianity and worship of Artemis existed in the same time in this city. So there were Christians living in this city, building their churches, but there were processions of Artemis as well. And one man whose name is Demeas, he said, no, I don't think this is going to happen. Mid 4th century AD. I don't want those guys, right, walk on that street and blaspheme the Lord. He was so brave person, right? He destroyed the statue of Artemis and the altar, and repurposed the stones to build a monument to be able to eternalize the victory of Christ. Ladies and gentlemen, in this very city, we have one stone on which this story has been recorded, and we have the name of Christ. Would you like to see it?
Yes.
Why? Nobody said no until today. I don't know. Let's go. Because that's the corner where they have pictures and photographs. No, we can just... I have the full picture and translation of it, right? No worries. The upper part is not important. It says Demeas destroyed the statue of demon Artemis and erected the monument of Athanaton, eternal. This is CYNBOLON, symbol on eternal, symbol of victory of Christ. NIKOFORON, Nikophoron means victory, like Nika. Key is key sound, right? Key is R, this is I, this is C, this is TOS, Christos. That is just carved here at 4th century AD. We still have it, but unfortunately, the majority of those groups walking with us, they were also pilgrimage groups. But none of them just paid attention to this beautiful inscription right here. You see, right here. Would you like to have a group picture right here?
Yeah.
Shall we use one of your cameras, or we have professionals taking pictures? What would you go for? One of yours. So you just go right there. Give me Timothy, the Paul advising him to be the bishop of Ephesus, right? And then, according to our records, whenever John was on exile on the island of Patmos, which should be around 90s AD, right? There was a procession of Artemis right here. That's a long street which goes down to the stadium area. That's almost a mile, right? And then there was a procession on that street, but this time Timothy was so angry about this happening here. And he said, "You are blaspheming the Lord. Do not do this." Stop his club to death and martyrs right here on some part on that street. And there is the very first person who's mentioning about his tomb to us, Russian priest Daniel. You can write priest Daniel, pilgrimage of 12th century. He says, in the cave right behind this hill, he found the tomb of Timothy and Maria Magdalena. And 100 years later, the leader of Catalan soldiers, mercenaries, Ramon Montera, came and wrote that he just saw the tomb of Timothy right here. But unfortunately, this is the area where we have the fault line, so the whole thing collapsed down. And it's hard for us to identify the location of the tomb. But we have eyewitnesses who just wrote those down. Around the latest one, I wrote it about 800 years ago. Most probably with the earthquake of 14th century, the whole thing mixed up and disappeared. So we are walking on the street where Timothy is being martyred. Incredible. We go to the Agora, right? And this is the theater, but there is an ongoing restoration work in the theater. So, the writings of 2nd century church fathers, one of them is Saint Polycarp, the disciple of John. He says he preached here and argued even the priest of the goddess Artemis, Temple of Artemis, right in here. So, and we know one of the famous early church father, Justin Martyr, who wrote about early Christianity and certainly established the Neoplatonic philosophy of Christianity, the eternality of the spirit, right? It just wrote right here and preached right here. So Paul was here, but Paul was not in the theater. They stopped him. They took him outside of the city because these people wanted to martyr him. So Paul was not here, but John was here. On 21st of July 2001, Elton John was here and he gave us a great concert. I was here. I really and highly enjoyed it. You don't believe in me? Truly, he was here.
I do. I believe you.
Yeah, he just played with his piano. It was a great concert. And I don't know which John you were thinking of.
And John.
There are a lot of John. I got you, right? Shall we go to... my plan is going down to the Agora where Paul preached, and you can just...
Yeah, I got some.
So you do
Andrew's
the
going to
reading.
do some
Yeah, okay.
readings. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it okay for everyone?
Yeah.
Yes. At 500 AD, they built new city walls. And we are looking at the new city walls of the city. All this prosperous part, which was once where all richest people lived, stayed outside of the city. Rich guys moved behind these walls. Poor guys stayed behind there. And now we are going to see the markings of the chariots on the marble. Markings of the wheels of chariots on the side.
That's still one of my favorite lines.
Clay pipes are so strong, they last for 2,000 years. So where would you like to be, at the shade or under the sun? Sunshine, Reggie. So we can go just this way. You see, the Romans prepared some stones for us that we can sit down and talk. They said sun, everyone, so we chose sun right here. You can go down this way and sit on those marbles. Taking place at the same time. And now, that corner, you see those arches were the shops, but we have two rows of pillars right here. This one, and there is another one right here with a shade. So this is the shop side. But here, if you have goods to sell for a day or two, three, you could go to the authorities, because there were authorities and there was a kind of police force controlling the trade in here. You say, I have goods to sell, I want to rent a table to sell goods, like a flea market. This corner, we may say flea market. So I would like to remind you, Acts 20 verse 34, Paul says, I didn't ask anything from you, I minister with my hands. What was he doing with Priscilla and Aquila, tent makers? So where do you think they sold their tents? Here. Maybe in this corner, maybe on the other one. Maybe Paul came, maybe Priscilla and Aquila came. Well, we don't know. But we are very sure this has been sold right here. Oh, are you sure? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. She just likes attention.
Okay, and she pulled everything she needs. So, do you need
Yeah, I would love that. I'm going to bring Andrew.
So.